Everybody, I'm proud to be joined by Senators Murray, Cardin, and Gillibrand. We had a great lunch. We discussed the whole supplemental situation at some length and many other subjects. Now look, Senate Democrats have been clear. The right and only path forward is bipartisanship. We must stand with our allies in Israel. We must send humanitarian aid to innocent civilians in Gaza. We must hold the line against Vladimir Putin by supporting Ukraine, and we must rebuff the aggressions of the Chinese Communist Party in the Indo-Pacific. The best, most efficient, and fastest way to help is through bipartisanship. In fact, it's the only way. And that's why I was so deeply disappointed by Speaker Johnson's first major legislative action, a purely partisan action. House Republicans released a partisan and woefully inadequate package with no aid to Ukraine, no humanitarian assistance for Gaza, no funding for Indo-Pacific, and poison pills that help wealthy tax cheats avoid paying their fair share. And the irony of it all is their whole idea with pay for is to reduce the deficit. This poison pill increases the deficit. Their price for helping Israel and abandoning America's responsibilities around the globe, making it much easier for the ultra-rich to cheat on their taxes. How the heck could that be their highest priority? It's only when the hard right governs the Republican caucus. All friends of Israel should say loudly and clearly that any move to make the U.S.-Israel relationship a partisan one is a move that hurts Israel. The House GOP package is woefully inadequate, has the hard right's fingerprints all over it, making aid to Israel, who just faced the worst terrorist attack in history, contingent on poison pills that help ultra-wealthy tax cheats. It's insulting that the hard right is openly trying to exploit the crisis in Israel and try to reward the ultra-rich. The new Speaker knows perfectly well that if you want to truly help Israel, you can't propose legislation that's filled with poison pills. And this kind of unnecessary partisan legislation sends the wrong message to our allies and adversaries around the world. We need bipartisanship and not partisan gamesmanship. It's almost as if the real goal of the House GOP is not to help Israel, but rather to get tax relief for the super wealthy while leaving out Ukraine, humanitarian aid for Gaza, and funding for the Indo-Pacific. Again, I say to Speaker Johnson, I plead with him, don't repeat the mistake of McCarthy and others and just follow the hard right in a partisan way. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the House. It's not even good for the Republican Party. I hope he will change his ways. And the last thing Republicans in Congress should be doing is what they have done, exploiting the crisis, not trying to solve it. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I just chaired a hearing with Secretaries Blinken and Austin about the national security challenges we face in Ukraine, in Israel, the Indo-Pacific, and around the world. And in our discussion, it was clear senators on both sides of the aisle understand we have to meet this moment with one robust package. We can't just do half of our job here. Because while the challenges we and our partners face across the globe are distinct, they are connected and they are urgent. This is not the time to be short-sighted or play political games like Speaker Johnson's proposal does. We are not abandoning our allies in Ukraine. We are not punting on life-saving humanitarian aid. And we are not conditioning our support for Israel on giving billionaire tax cheats a get-out-of-jail-free card. That is a proposal that will go nowhere here in the Senate. This is a time to be strategic and work together for the good of our country. We need a package that treats each of these crises seriously, and that's exactly what I'm working on drafting with Senator Collins. We must take a full view of this moment. If we're going to get this right, we have to understand how these conflicts are developing today and what our strategy is for the future. It's especially important we see the big picture without losing sight of the human reality on the ground, the fact that in the middle of every conflict are civilians, residents who are displaced from their homes, hostages torn from their families, people facing obstacles getting basic medical services, and kids and families who desperately need food and water. Any package absolutely must continue our long-standing and all-important tradition of leading the global humanitarian response that really matters. Let me be clear here. We are helping make sure people have food and water and medical care, whether they are in Ukraine or in Gaza. It's not just the right and moral thing to do, it is also very clearly in our national interest as it promotes long-term stability and security, combating hopelessness that can spiral into new threats. We have to show we understand that, because make no mistake, Hamas is hoping that we ignore the humanitarian needs in Gaza so it can drive people to despair, then anger. We cannot play into their hands. Investing in humanitarian aid makes the world and America safe. This is absolutely a critical component of any supplemental. All of our adversaries are watching closely to see whether we have the vision here to recognize how these crises are related and the resolve to come together and respond forcefully to them. I hope senators on both sides of the aisle are ready to show our adversaries unity, not dysfunction. And finally, before I conclude, let me say this firmly and unequivocally. We are the United States of America. We can stand with our allies around the world and tackle the challenges facing our families here at home at the same time. And at times like this, we must. So I will keep pushing for us to take swift action on domestic challenges like the child care crisis as well. Thank you.
Senator Cardin.
President Biden's supplemental appropriations in regards to national security foreign policy is absolutely essential for our national security. When Speaker Johnson separated the package, pulling Israel out and ignoring Ukraine, it was a gift to Vladimir Putin. The signal that sends is that this is not a priority of the United States, and it sends a message to our partners that it is not as important for us to help Ukraine. We need to keep this package together. The need for Ukrainian aid is now. We're facing the winter months when the international support for Ukraine will be absolutely vital for Ukraine to be able to maintain the gains that they have made and to protect their country moving forward. We must keep this package together. In regards to Israel, the aid is absolutely essential. We got to make sure that Israel can defend itself. And we know that it needs the interceptors and it needs the technologies from the incoming missiles. But as a part of this package is the humanitarian package that is also vitally important. Senate Foreign Relations Committee met today with Ambassador Herzog and members of the military from Israel. We recognize that we have to be strategic not only in defending Israel from Hamas, but making sure we do it in a way consistent with values. The humanitarian aid is absolutely essential. We've seen major progress made in the last several days. And we also recognize we need to work now for the day after this war is over to make sure that there are seeds planted for responsible leadership for the people of Gaza, for a future with Israel and Gaza, two states living side by side in peace. This supplemental appropriation being passed now is absolutely essential in forwarding those goals. It's the United States security interest to keep this package intact, to help Israel, to help Ukraine, to help the Asian Pacific, to help the humanitarian crisis.
Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Senator Schumer, for your clear-eyed leadership on this. I want to also thank Senators Cardin and Murray for their words. This has been a very difficult time in our nation and in our world. For over 3 weeks, the The daily news has been filled with stories of pain and tragedy in Israel and in Gaza. The atrocities committed in Israel by Hamas on October 7th were sickening. The stories from that barbaric attack continue to filter through, and their inhumanity shocks the conscience. It is critically important that the United States continue to stand in full support of Israel and its right to defend itself. The supplemental package contains robust resources to accomplish that goal, as well as face the security challenges in Ukraine and the South Pacific. We have to stand united against those working to undermine us. The package also demonstrates that the United States and our allies understand that this war is against Hamas, not Palestinian civilians. We will not turn a blind eye to the suffering Hamas's atrocities have brought to Gaza, or fail to recognize the need to provide that humanitarian aid. The supplemental funding request includes life-saving humanitarian assistance for Gaza. These are people who need our help, babies, children. They have hurt no one, and they are not our enemies. They too are victims of Hamas. By swiftly passing the supplemental funding, we would be sending a message to the world that the United States stands by its principles, stands by our allies, and that we will hold Hamas accountable while protecting innocent lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Yes.
Did you really anticipate something different from Speaker Johnson? I mean, his problems are the same that Kevin McCarthy has. If he were to move on something else, they would move to vacate the chair.
You answered in a certain sense your own question, but he should have learned. Speaker Johnson should learn from the examples of Speaker Boehner, of Speaker Ryan, and of Speaker McCarthy. If you try to let the hard right run your caucus, it's going to lead to real problems for you, your party, your Senate, your House, and your country.
Leader
Yes.
Schumer, would you be open to offsetting any of the emergency foreign aid package?
Emergency foreign aid should not be offset. Yes.
Leader Schumer.
Is there any scenario that you would support a package that did not include funding to both Ukraine and Israel?
We are for it. I'm working with Leader McConnell closely to try and get a package that we both feel strongly that we need aid for Israel, we need aid for Ukraine, we need aid for the South Asia, and we feel very strongly, I do certainly, that we need humanitarian aid for innocent civilians in Gaza who are hurt.
Leader
Yes,
Schumer.
nope, him.
Is your end goal to force Speaker Johnson's hand here?
Our end goal is to get something done. There are dictators who are looking for the United States to fail. There's Putin. There's Xi. There's the people in Iran. So we have to be strong and united at this time in our history and support our allies.
Leader Schumer,
Yes.
at this point, would you say that whatever the House sends over at the end of this week, if it's just Israel, is dead on arrival?
Look, the bottom line is it's not a serious proposal. Yes.
What do you say to folks within your own party who are calling for a ceasefire and also calling
Look,
President Biden to be more
there should be
against Israel's actions?
Okay, there are three goals that Israel must have: to radically reduce the threat of Hamas, to save the hostages, and to minimize innocent civilian casualties. Last one.
The Commandant has been hospitalized, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Would you be willing to bring the number 2 nominee?
Look, I'd say this: the crisis that we have makes it even more apparent that Republicans themselves should get Tuberville to back off what he is doing, now more than ever, and I hope that they will. What happened with the Marine Corps Commandant shows just the reason we don't know who the next person is who might get ill or whatever, so we need to do everybody, and they got to push everybody, and we'll be pushing the Republicans to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.